Welcome back, everyone, to Panzer Corps 2. This is the second mission. We're still playing as the Nazis, and it's the Bug River. We are advancing further into Poland. This is the last mission of the Polish campaign. And I'm actually recording the audio after the fact because, yeah. And, yeah, this is also a new build of the beta. It's actually the preview build that everyone who has pre-ordered the game gets access to. And they've rebalanced some things. The game's easier. And that's one of the main reasons why it took me so long to actually get this second part. It's because the game's quite hard. Anyways, so we are going to be deploying our troops, as you can obviously see. And we're going to be facing a sort of Polish combined arms force near Warsaw. Since we've taken a northern approach, we're going to be cutting through from the north to the south. And yeah, just trying to upgrade whatever units I have, you know, getting everything fielded. So yeah, I'll skip ahead a little bit. Okay, so now our troops are mostly deployed. I decided to get myself a fighter because I know that there is a Polish Air Force opposition in this mission, as you can see from our little map hack ability that we have. There are a few Polish planes around Warsaw, and there are two ways of dealing with those planes. One is to capture all their airfields, but that's going to take a while, and two is to get fighters to protect my own stuff. I also decided to get myself a few tank units, which are quite useful in the gap between the two major rivers that are on this map. And since there are so many rivers, I also go for these Brücken Pioniere, which are going to help us because they get less of a penalty when attacking across rivers. Okay, so deployment phase is over. And we see immediately some Polish cavalry is around. Ha ha ha, the cavalry against the Panzers meme. And so we get our artillery present in there to shell them. And to get across into sort of the eastern area of Warsaw, that is one of our objectives, we need to basically cut through a few fortified positions. As you can see, there's some Polish infantry in there, which is why I sent in the engineers, the Pioniere, the pioneers, with the flamethrowers. Company of Heroes vibes right there. And yeah, they're gonna clear out those enemies in the city. I also decide to send one grenadier off to Białystok, or Białystok, or however you pronounce it, to clear out the anti-tank gun and get the victory point. And down here, obviously the tanks in the open against the infantry are going to be quite effective. Send them back with one attack, then the second attack comes through, and just follow up. Now, there's this big wide open, as you can see, gap between the two major rivers that we already talked about. And that's where I'll try to dash through to reach the objectives on the southeastern end of the map. And also we're going to try to use our air supremacy to bomb. There's this annoying artillery piece that you need to neutralize as early as possible, and also quite a few Polish tanks. So those are all targets against which our bombers excel, and we're going to use them for that. Fighters, I'm sending in to strafe the infantry, but that's actually a mistake because the enemy fighters are going to gang up on my Stukas. I should have kept my fighters a little bit closer to my weaker things. And I put that artillery there as a bit of a bait in a way, because I thought that, well, not really as a bait, but like I didn't think that that cavalry unit would come in and attack me, but they did. And so since they do, they don't take that much damage. Like my artillery doesn't take that much damage, and so we can kill the cavalry next turn. And in the southwest of the map, we have a few units that the game spawns for us all the time, and as you can see, my planes are getting crept on. We have those units there, and it's always pretty difficult to defend with them because the Polish come in against them quite heavily. so you need to rush to them to help defend. And as you can see, artillery plus engineers quite good at clearing out cities. Unfortunately, I cannot use my aircraft to kill the retreating enemy infantry because there's an anti-tank gun on that, an anti-aircraft gun on that airfield. So we're gonna need to clear that out with our ground troops before our planes can move on and do sorties on the western end of the map. And yeah, now we can use our tanks, our Panzers, to move through the open area, and the infantry is going to clear out the tank gun right up here in the north, which hopefully should be quite easy. Encircled, easy peasy, and they guess they weren't so encircled after all. They're out. And now that that enemy infantry is very, very low on numbers, we can just come in and finish them off. The enemy cavalry, also not too strong. There we go. They're all dead. And now I can just make my units do the Blitzkrieg that they always wanted to do. Alright, turn 3. Now, our bridging units are starting to get into a pretty good spot to advance forward. But there's still the issue of those Polish planes. So, yeah, it's going to be quite difficult. But at least we get our first victory point up here in the north. And now my truck-equipped artillery can just rush down to the south and help out in the advance. The problem is my infantry up there does not have trucks, so they're gonna take a long-ass time blocking south. But anyway, that infantry is pretty much a gunner, and they unencircle themselves through the retreat, obviously. And I'm debating whether or not to send my panzers all the way south because I fear like ambushes from those woods, so I do not push my advantage too much. And up here, as you can see in the west, our troops having broken through the city with the bridge, essentially, are now going to be moving in. And I see that that enemy troop has only 1 strength, so I finish them off, and then the Panzers can do their job at destroying that anti-air gun, and next turn I can take the airfield, and also move the artillery piece across the river. Of course, my artillery piece has been kind of cooked because there was an infantry in the fog of war that I didn't realize was there. So now I have to come through, and unfortunately I am also pretty dumb because I could have just used my artillery to soften them up, and my aircraft. It's something I've actually noticed that I get wrong quite a bit in this game, is that I don't really have the habit of using units like artillery and aircraft before attacking, rather than the opposite. Anyway, as you can see, the Brückenpioniere are quite good at crossing the rivers and killing the enemies across the, the rivers. It's what they're made for. And yeah, so now my tanks can just kind of cut across the rest of the map, and that's exactly what was needed. And yeah, my planes are waiting a turn to replenish, because, it's pretty good not to lose them. And we have quite a lot of money, so we can replenish pretty much units. And here I make a mistake. I'm like, oh, there's a unit, and I did not realize that that was an anti-tank gun. So I get my Panzer II kind of shot up a little bit. And yeah, now we're just gonna move on through and get to Brest with the Panzer 38T. Yay! And the enemy seems to be incredibly fanatic in pursuing my artillery piece, which has placed their infantry in a rather unfortunate position. They're on a river, which means that they take more damage, so I can just come in with the Stukas and pummel them as it's basically representing how they're like crossing. And their tanks have moved up to deal with my Brückenpioniere, but that allows my other troops to flank them and destroy them in the town. Tanks are pretty ineffective in urban areas, so obviously it's a good place to catch the enemy tanks. And now I'm just gonna try to move towards that nice little town. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, the tanks are not effective in urban areas, so we're gonna need to wait for our infantry to get there. Also, another good reason to put a tank like right next to an enemy city is that the enemies really love to why did I do that? The enemies really love attacking out of a city into an enemy that they think is vulnerable for some reason. And sometimes that enemy is not really as vulnerable as they expected. So yeah, here we go. Just finally dealing with one of those Polish fighters, which, yeah, it's pretty good because they've been really annoying. And now I'm readying my guys over here to push towards Warsaw. Now, my other tank, my Panzer II, or maybe that's actually a Panzer I, but the screen's too small for me to see. I can send them down south to help out our defensive units in the southwest, and that would be, honestly, at this point, it would be needed. And there's just, yeah, I think I'm gonna destroy that infantry unit so that I can protect my artillery that's running away, and they can finally get their little replenishment. And yeah, as you can see, the enemy over here are trying to counterattack my panzers. Quite effective with the anti-tank gun, of course, not as effective with the infantry. And you can, like, it's not panning over, but there was a counterattack near Sielce, which is the town in the middle. And here comes random enemy infantry, also, to destroy both my anti-tank gun and my Panzer II or 1, whatever it is. So this is one of the big counterattack turns in a way, and we're going to need to deal with that. So obviously, get the artillery back and fire on the on the advancing enemy infantry. And also use the pioneers to finally deal with that anti-aircraft gun. So now my aircraft have free reign to go pretty much wherever. And here we need to destroy that enemy infantry, but actually take the turn off to replenish the panzers, because otherwise they would not be all that useful moving southward. And now that we have taken the airfield near Warsaw, we can also rebase our planes. If we also take the airfield in the middle of the map, as you can see, the flag there is still Polish, even though they have no units there, because I haven't actually moved any of my guys in there. But if we take the airfield, we can also rebase our planes there and reach the southeast corner of the map. And yeah, just trying to get my forces ready for the sort of final push against the most important enemy areas. And tank gun almost dead, but unfortunately his positioning kind of prevents my artillery from being useful. I do decide to send the artillery on a bit of an overzealous move, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And right now my infantry in the VP down there is not having a fun time because they're getting shelled by that artillery piece. It's coming in from the Polish, so we're going to need to find a way to deal with that. But first, I attack into the open ground against that enemy infantry unit to prevent them from being too strong in destroying my anti-tank gun. That was running away. Obviously, our enemies do not really let up. They are able to send that glorious tank that you see right there up and kind of crush us. And we still have the artillery problem down south. Of course, my anti-tank gun gets pushed back by their infantry. And that means that the enemy have captured the city there, but not the victory point. And that's quite important, because they can capture the city all they want. As long as the victory point stays in our hands, we're still gonna get the victory. So, yeah, they can do whatever. Now, as you can see, their anti-tank gun to sort of run after our Panzers got himself in a pretty bad position, as well as his tank is trying to cross the bridge, and so now they're in a vulnerable position and we can get extra damage in on them. So I jump at the opportunity, and that enemy infantry unit in Brest is basically stuck there defending, so I'm just gonna leave them where they are and use my units to gang up on the tank, and then afterwards, you know, come around and deal with them later. I've still got the problem of that Polish infantry sort of running around in the back, but there's worse. There's worse. And my other units are moving to the southwest, where we're starting to get some damage off on their artillery. In the enemy turn, as you can see, their tank is still obstinately going after my artillery piece, and their infantry also goes after my artillery piece, destroying it in the process. That's the first unit I lose in this battle. It really does seem like the AI is extremely focused, almost obsessed with going after your artillery, which is obviously like good overall, like a good idea, but I'm not sure if it's always the greatest strategy, considering that sometimes it leaves their units very, very heavily exposed, as for example this Polish tank over here that is now sitting on the river. It hasn't been able to destroy my artillery piece, and now he is in a position where my Panzers can not only surround him and kill him, but you know, he's also on the river, so even if I wasn't able to surround him, it would still be bad. That's pretty nice though, because it gives my Panzer 38 an overrun, which allows him to also move forward near Vlodava, which is the last VP in the southeast, and also start to whittle down at their cavalry division. And I've still got my planes, obviously, although some of them really need to be rebased. Warsaw is going to fall relatively soon, hopefully. And down south we still have the issue of that infantry, which, no, that was a mistake. That was probably a pretty big mistake. I do decide to send the infantry to recapture the city, which is gonna allow one of their units to get into the VP most likely. So that is a little unfortunate, but the Poles are basically on their last legs, and really the only question left for me is how many more losses am I going to sustain, and how quickly I can sort of root out the last Polish garrisons. So as you can see, the artillery has captured the VP, but my infantry can retake that easily enough, and I send the AT gun back to the city to prevent their infantry from making other attacks on me. Warsaw, they still have quite a strong garrison, still in the double-digit strength, but I've got the Pioniere, so the city battle doesn't really scare me all that much. Of course, there's also the problem of that infantry unit that's just kind of running amok, but it's a very minor one. And yeah, as I said in the last turn, the problem is starting to become the rooting out of annoying garrisons. Also, I finally capture the airfield near Sielce, and now I can rebase my fighters and tactical bombers there. Or rather, close air supports don't have tactical bombers. And yeah, Ju-87s from the middle airfield can now reach the far southeast of the map. And my artillery piece, which has survived sort of the vicissitudes of the earlier encounters, can still provide fire support, which is going to decrease their entrenchment and morale, and eventually also their actual unit count. But as you can see, the Brest garrison cannot really survive for too long. And now with 2 Panzers to the 1 cavalry, we can easily push them back, and thankfully enough, they're pushed back to a river, so that makes it pretty easy to finish them off. And thankfully, they also don't have an infantry in Vlodava as a garrison, which allows my Panzer 38s to do quite well against the tank garrison that the Polish have. And so now begins the final assault on Vlodava and Brest. Obviously the infantry unit against the tanks is going to do quite well, and there's no need to waste my units on that secondary objective that you can see there, so I'm just going to replenish my Panzers for the next battles. And because obviously like the unit strength carries over from operation to operation. And yeah, Warsaw is now ours. The infantry in the sort of southwest of the map is still being annoying, but not really impossible to deal with. Not really creating an impossible situation for us. And okay, I do decide to tactical bomb that enemy unit, and also the infantry. I did manage to make the anti-tank gun survive, which is going to be quite an important piece of ordnance for the later battles. Obviously, tank versus infantry in urban environment, pretty good for us. They get forced off, and the Panzer 38 can finish it off with an excellent sight shot. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be the end of Brest as well. I'm not sure why I clicked the camouflage thing there. It seems like a missing feature. The last thing I need to do literally is click a couple of times. We get the mass attack bonus from having many units around, and they are already depleted from the previous battles, but they're not destroyed, and maybe they would have been had I sent in the fighters a little bit earlier, so I'm also forced to send in the tanks to finish them off. And there we go, that is the end of Buk River. The next sort of region that we're going to be fighting in is Norway. Germany's invasion of Norway will stretch the Wehrmacht's logistics to the limit. You must decide where to focus the committal of your army. We either have South Norway or North Norway, and since our army is relying quite a lot on Panzers, I decide to go for the South. So that's what we're going to be looking at next time, the invasion of Norway. So have a good day, see you soon, hope you've enjoyed, and well, take care.